It's Tuesday, June 16th, and I got a couple of questions I want to ask you. Why do cops carry guns? Because people carry guns. And why do cops shoot people? Because people shoot people. Why do people need guns? Because other people have guns. You get the picture here? It's a never-ending circle. In general, U.S. residents are 128 times more likely to be killed by everyday gun violence than international terrorism. And black people specifically are 500 times more likely to die this way. Importantly, most urban areas, especially those that experience the most gun violence, are characterized by poverty, inequality, and racial segregation, which results in the rate for black Americans in all 50 states is 8 times higher than whites as far as gun violence is concerned. So why do I mention that? Because Black Lives Matter has been voicing concerns over gun violence for years, but it's never taken action on this as a cause. And in my mind, that cause is more important than police brutality. Another factor associated with the gun violence is the fact that in these lower income areas characterized by poverty and inequality and racial segregation, there's a high incidence of drug activity. And that incidence of drug activity also leads to gun violence. So it's a double whammy. You're in a poor neighborhood and you got drug activity. And you're a minority. And let's face it, there is some racial tension that exists in those areas. And the police are there because you got drug activity, and you probably have other activities that are not exactly on the up and up. So I would call that situation with gun violence a social problem. But according to other people who look at these things, a social problem does not exist unless it's recognized by society. So society is saying, you don't have a social problem. You don't recognize gun violence as a social problem in this country. So let me lay on top of this situation the media and social movements. They play a role in how the news of gun violence is experienced across the nation. The violence in inner city neighborhoods might be widely known, but is very rarely mentioned in newscasts. I guess they accept it as a way of life. Now, media outlets perpetuate stereotypes of communities of color by rarely showing minorities in the role of the victim. That means they are always considering everybody else a victim, but not the minority. The minority is not considered a victim. The media continues to negatively affect communities by talking about black on black crime. But that's a lot of bullshit. That's a lot of bullshit. There's crime. There's lots of crime. But statistically, whites typically commit crimes against whites, and Asians against Asians, and Native Americans against Native Americans, because they tend to be in the same neighborhood, right? We are still a racist society in a way, and that we don't look for integration when we move to a neighborhood. We look to see people who look like us, who act like us, who make the same amount of money that we do. We're not looking to move into an integrated neighborhood. And that goes on both sides, the white side, the black side, the yellow side, the green side. So this story of color on color crime is a systemic variation of racism. And because of that, all the minorities are left to fix their problems on their own. They're not getting help from anybody. And one of the major problems is the guns. When there are more guns, there are more gun deaths. And since we have the most guns in the world, it makes sense that we have the most deaths. By a long shot, we have the most gun deaths in the world. And if we have more guns in the minority neighborhoods and the poor neighborhoods, then there'll be more deaths there too, especially when you throw in the drug factor. Now, many are making us believe that the gun problem that we have is because we have mental health issues. But we don't have a lot of mental health issues any more than anybody else. So when you really come right down to it, The gun violence in this country is not because we have mental health issues. It's because we have more guns. More guns in the hands of violent people. And that's what leads to gun deaths. It's not mental health. Yes, you get one crazy here and there, but on general, some mental health is not the big deal. And you know what? Whites commit more suicide using a gun than blacks do, by 3 to 1. So what does that tell you? Guns are dangerous in the hands of everybody. So if you want to stop minorities, black, yellow, green, getting shot by police, then you ought to work hard on getting guns off the street. Do away with guns, right? No guns on the street, nobody's going to get killed by them. Black Lives Matter should consider reducing the gun homicides and suicides as a worthy pursuit. It's also important to work on changes that are linked to gun homicides in order to reduce racial inequalities and gun deaths overall. So there's something that I could really get behind if Black Lives Matter stood up and said, we got to do away with guns. We got to make sure that there are no guns in this country. We have in this country more guns than we have people. And we have 330 million people in this country. And so, in my mind, if we could do away with the guns, then the police might not need to be carrying around a gun and shooting. And then the whole picture would change. The whole picture. So that's what I think. I think all of these organizations that are fighting for minority rights ought to put gun violence and gun control on their agendas. And I guess that'll do it for today, and I'll see you in the morning.